there's a seed, and then it becomes a little teeny tiny sprout. And then the sprout becomes this little teeny tiny sapling. And then over time it becomes a young tree. And then over time it becomes a mature tree until finally it's like an elder tree. And it's a home for so many other beings. It's a keystone species in a web of relationships. And if you look at every creature in the web of life, grasses, plants, flowers, bumblebees, leopards, elephants, oceans and rivers, they have a linear progression of development. There's a progressional developmental pathway from their very beginning seed beginning into their becoming of something ripe and mature. And if you look at everything, and I'm just not talking about human beings right now, but if you look at all the other mammals and four-leggeds and creepy crawlies and flyers and forests and waters, etc., they all serve more than themselves. They serve more than themselves. They all become a web of interdependent life that can't exist without each other. And as in ecology, we understand that as relationships complexify over time, they become more complex. These interdynamic, interdependent relationships become more complex over time.
Welcome to Mythopoetics for the Future. I'm Sarah, your host, and I'd like to invite you into this world. Let me breathe life into these words, Mythopoetics for the Future. Originally, this word comes from the Greek mythos, meaning myth, and poiein, to make myth. But what do we mean by myth here? According to the Oxford Dictionary, a myth is a traditional story, and we've all heard of ancestral stories of creation myths. In this sense, we're calling upon myth as a vehicle or a way into understanding and narrating our existence. Tolkien, creator of worlds of the 20th century, spoke to us about mythopoeia, and here from his poem by the same name, I share with you these words. He sees no stars who does not see them first, of living silver made, that sudden burst to flame like flowers beneath an ancient song, whose very echo after music long has since pursued. There is no firmament, only a void, unless a jeweled tent, myth-woven and elf-patterned, and no earth unless the mother's womb whence all have birth. So this is a glimpse of what mythopoetics is for me, a map or a lens to navigate experience and narrate existence into a truth and a reality that is for me inherently magical and sacred. And for the future relates to the future of the earth, the more than human world, for the grandchildren that will come, for the wild ones, the ecosystems. I truly believe it's time to open these emergent conversations, to emerge together in the present into the future. I am deeply, deeply happy today because I have a very special guest and person with me, and I want to formally welcome you. Palika, welcome to Mythopoetics for the Future.
Thank you. I'm delighted and titillated to be here.
Right, so I just want to tell you a few words about Palika. I have been studying, and she has been my mentor for a few years, and she is one who courts and centers the mystery of the underworld moon and the miraculous blue-green pearl. She is a cultural disruptor of modernity and the systemic disconnections from the interdependent wild web. She is one who listens and tends to the edges, the
mm,
holy cracks and the fertile darkness, where the
mm,
psyche of the animate earth
mm,
seeks to pierce and envelop us,
mm,
remembering humankind to a life enhancing, accountable human habitation pattern.
mm, mm,
She supports initiatory life to death to life journey
mm,
necessary to embody the visionary and emergent poem, an ecological niche we've been imagined to inhabit for Earth, cosmos, and future ancestors.
mm,
Her developmental path has encompassed somatic, emotional, relational literacies, deep ecology, ecofeminism, living systems, motherhood,
mm,
devotional monastics, and regenerative permacultures. And she paints ceremonial drums,
mm,
tends the hearth fires for radical evolution of the human psyche. And you will find her
mm,
at wildmythosdrums.com and also as a guide in Animas Valley Institute.
mm,
Well, without further ado,
mm,
Palika,
mm.
tell us, with life intertwined with mystery of awe and love and grief and heartache, what is bringing you joy and awe? And what is bringing you heartache in your
Mm.
life today?
Mm. Thank you. Mm. I mean, there's the stream of joy inducing and awe inducing moments is just never ending. Um, the miraculous blue green pearl, you know, over my life, I was graced to be really interested in the earth. What is the earth? What is the cosmos? And um, as I learned more and more, like from everything, from chemistry, from biology, and then philosophy, asking what is this world, what is this place, I'm astounded by just the geological realities of the Earth planet. It's so astounding. Sunsets and sunrises and forests and river streams and whales and hawks and songbirds and thunderstorms. I mean, I just remember as a child, I was so enamored and turned on by thunderstorms. I used to just get so excited. Thunderstorms would just they would create this mood in my life, and I would like create a fort, and I'd make magical lighting in the fort, and I'd bring my art supplies, my favorite books in the fort. So there would be these twin responses to thunderstorms. One was to like build a cave like magical womb like kind of space, and then the other, I wanted to run outside and I wanted to fly with the wind and the lightning and the rain. And so it really stirred me up. It stirred my aliveness. Thunderstorms stirred my aliveness, and so many things. Ocean waves, the music of the ocean, the beauty of the night. So the world itself just brings so much beauty. And then, of course, gosh, particular animals and beings, and the human mammal can also bring you so much joy. Love, tenderness, kindness, laughter, connection, um, creating feasts and celebrations together, honoring sacred death together, honoring the seasons of life together. Um, Brings me so much joy and awe. And that directly gets conflated with, it's mixed up with all that breaks my heart. Primarily it just currently now the overstructure of modernity, it seems to be life destroying instead of life enhancing. My heart is broken wide open for salmon, for bears, for redwood trees, for oak trees, for rivers, for the future, for the children here now, for people here now all over the world. My heart's breaking. People are scared. Depression, mental illness is rampant. Poverty is rampant. Illness is rampant. And capitalism has been so centered to the point of hurting people. just hurting people and the planet. Seems like a lot of the fundamental biological systems on Earth are imperiled in this moment by this really strange phenomenon, which is the power of the human animal species, one species, what it's capable of, both incredibly what it's incapable of and also detrimentally. So those are some of the things that's, currently stirring me with grief and love in these times. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I'm so curious. What exactly do you mean when you say sacred death and the life death life cycle? Like, I'm so curious about that. How is that intertwined in with the current meta crisis that we're in today? Like, how
Mm.
is that for each person? How can we step into that? Why should we step into that?
That's such a huge question. So many things come to my mind. The first thing pops into my mind is somehow human beings have become addicted to spring and summer. And I don't mean just the season of spring and summer, but metaphorically spring and summer. Like death has become something to be avoided in one way. Um, most of us were grown up in lives where death is hidden behind the scenes. We haven't been taught that death and life are fundamentally entwined and that dying is part of why is it sacred? It's sacred because it's intertwined with the whole processes of creation and life and what's possible. And the preciousness of what's possible is made more precious because of the temporality of life and because of death. And yeah, like in terms of the meta crisis, it seems like we're on the hugest threshold of death right now. Yeah, the death of the planet, the death of I don't know, a way of human habitation pattern that we've known it or that has come to be in the more contemporary times. And it feels like there's great possibility of widening our lenses and transformative views and deeper understandings when we appreciate the life death cycle, when we're really truly understanding that everything must die and that underneath death is the reimagining the possibility of something that's never before been here or been seen to come forth, you know. Um, Yeah, we talk about initiatory times. Like, what does that mean, initiatory times? Initiation into what? And if we talk about the long arc of, say, something like the evolution of consciousness, what is the place of the life death cycle or holding that as a sacred threshold crossing? Um, in the evolution of consciousness, what is happening right now in terms of the evolution of consciousness of humanity and on the earth? And this crisis is bringing us kind of to our knees to really ask the big question, what are we really here for? What is the world? What is our place here? There's this miraculous earth. And it took, I mean, the universe like 14 billion years to come to be, and then the earth 4+ billion years to come into being. It's been this extraordinary, slow, wild emergent process that finally ended up with something like us and the current the current web of life that's here. And there has to be, it's so detailed and so miraculous, like Earth or the cosmos really wanted to know about like consciousness and sight and what might we be here for. So this crisis in the world, our systems, biological systems are in a death process. Our consciousness about who we think we are, what we're for, is kind of in a death process. And what's possible? And of course, there's many wisdom teachings and teachers and elders that have come before and elders that are here now that are pointing the way for us to like consider these questions. What am I for? What's the ecological niche of human beings? What are we for? Why do we have this fantastic capacity for imagination? Why do we have this fantastic capacity for feeling love and grief and heartache? Why do we have this incredible capacities of perception with all of our senses to understand the mood or the psyche? Why are we able to communicate with one another and across species? Why? You know,
So you speak to us of so many things that I'm
I
fascinated
know.
about, but I really, I'm just feeling this now, like, so these sensitivities that we were created to feel, these heartbreaks,
Mm,
like, how can this be related? Like, if we understand that there is such a thing as a mythopoetic identity, perhaps you can speak to that. Like, what is that? Is there a place? Is it why should we pursue this identity? And how is it then, as you speak to these sensitivities and heartbreaks, our own individual life story, like how does that point us to our authenticity and perhaps finding our way and our place here today? Yeah.
mhm. Let's just use a real simple example of an oak tree. There's a seed, and then it becomes a little teeny tiny sprout. And then the sprout becomes this little teeny tiny sapling. And then over time, it becomes a young tree. And then over time, it becomes a mature tree until finally it's like an elder tree. And it's a home for so many other beings. It's a keystone species in a web of relationships. And if you look at every creature in the web of life, grasses, plants, flowers, bumblebees, leopards, elephants, oceans, and rivers, they have a linear progression of development. There's a progressional developmental pathway from their very beginning seed beginning into their becoming of something ripe and mature. And if you look at everything, and I'm just not talking about human beings right now, but if you look at all the other mammals and four-leggeds and creepy crawlies and flyers and forests and waters, etc., they all serve more than themselves. They serve more than themselves. They all become a web of interdependent life that can't exist without each other. And as in ecology, we understand that as relationships complexify over time, they become more complex. These interdynamic, interdependent relationships become more complex over time. So we could, from an ecological point of view, and even from an existential point of view, we could ask, like, what is the purpose of the oak tree? What is the purpose of the swamp? What is the purpose of the river? What is the purpose of bear? And there's an ecological niche that it occupies, and it makes up a whole. And it's something that's mysterious, this whole that we're made of. So then we get to, like, how could we be different? We ask the question to us, how could we be different? There's some developmental pathway of something we're meant to become. And we have some unique qualities that have evolved uniquely together that seem to be dominant in our species, like our capacity for imagination, our capacity to future, to plan and see, and to pattern track. We have a capacity to do all kinds of pattern tracking and see for the future. And so we get to ask this question: what's our place? What's our place here? And then you get to also kind of look at what are the kinds of things that human beings, there's certain questions that human beings have been enamored with and amused by since the beginning of time. This would be something like a sensitivity that's evolved in us. And that sensitivity is like they ask the question, why am I here? There must be meaning to life. There must be deep meaning to life. This is inherent in our blueprint, that we ask these questions. We're concerned about these things. I mean, my 4-year-old was asking me these questions when he was 4 years old. What are we all for, Mom? Where did the universe come from? Why is there a universe? Why are we here? Why is there a moon? Why am I here? A 4-year-old asking those questions. And so these questions that we ask point to something of the way we're made, what we're made for, perhaps. Right. So you brought up mythopoetic identity. I'm kind of holding up on speaking to that to a minute because it's a very complex um, topic. But I'm just talking about just asking the question, what's our place in the web of life? What's our ecological niche? And is there a developmental pathway that we are inherently meant to go on? And I call that the becoming fully human pathway that we're inherently meant to go on in order to become what is called a mature human being. Like And then we get to ask the question, what's a mature, true adult? What's a mature, true elder? You know, does an elder just mean somebody who's older, or does it mean something different? And we get to look at different definitions of what is a true adult. So I'm a guide for the Animas Valley Institute, and Bill Plotkin is the founder of the Animas Valley Institute, and he's written a number of books, and one of them is Nature and the Human Soul. And he proposes in this great tome, really beautiful poem tome book, um, something about what is the ecological niche of human beings. And he outlines there a beautiful ecocentric developmental pathway over the course of the human lifespan from the time of birth till the time of death. And an ecocentric and soul centric pathway of different stages through life that, if well held and well supported, a human being can become a true adult. And there's a very specific definition of what a true adult is, and that we need true adults in order to have true elders. We're at a dearth of elders. There's always been, they've always been here, since the beginning of time. But modernity and everything about modernity and capitalism and the marketplace and the extraction of things from the earth, and the idea that we're just here to extract from the earth and spend, really doesn't produce a lot of elders. That kind of human habitation pattern, or that reason for living, doesn't produce a lot of earth-centric elders, or earth-wise elders, as I call them. So I'll let you, I said a lot, and I'll let you just kind of
Yeah,
see where
there's
you want to go with that.
yeah, there's so much here. And I'd like to go back to what you were speaking to about this inherent ancient ancestral questions, and sort of directed a little bit towards these inherent longings
Mm.
that we feel inside of us. And I have felt them throughout my life, and it has taken me to pursue an understanding in the form that I arrived at that moment. And so if we're imagining or understanding that there is this web of life, and that there is this force, a desirous, as you say, a desirous creative cosmos is imagining, what do you feel that this desirous creative cosmos is actually imagining?
Oh, I love this question. I love this
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
oh gosh, there's so many beautiful things in there. Um, let's see. Okay, so I should just premise, that my worldview is that an animistic worldview, that the cosmos and the web of life is alive, sentient, intelligent, creative, and has desire. So I'm sitting here saying this is my belief system, that the cosmos, the universe, is animate, intelligent, creative, and desirous. Creative is an interesting word because, that means, like, unbeknownst to itself, something might emerge or be created that it didn't quite imagine. It's hard to know what came first, the imagining or the creative force. That's like the chicken and the egg. But okay, so I just want to set that out as a premise so people know, like, that's my worldview. That's my worldview. And so for a long time, I was very enamored by the Vedic worldview, which comes from ancient India. And they had a teaching that there was a original creative force, a being, and that this creative force longed to experience many different flavors of love, many different flavors of love and intimate relationship. Oh my gosh, this just gets me right in the heart. If we were to imagine that the universe had a desire, or a desire to explore and experience intimate, creative relationship, passionate relationship all the possibilities of creation of different kinds of beings that could then play out a huge, spectacular variety of relationships of intimate, creative, co-creative, collaborative relationships, love. Like, what if the universe wants to experience all kinds of poems of love? I'm sure this is sounding very far out to some people. But there's lots of worldviews, and this feels like a really good one to have if you're going to have one. At least it makes me happy. So, like I imagine that the universe, the cosmos, and its desire, um, this was the seed principle, and so out came atoms like gold and silver, or oxygen atoms, or carbon atoms, and that these fundamental building blocks of life, each one is infused with a certain amount of animation, intelligence, creativity, and desire to bump up against things, and some sense of selfhood. And so, maybe oxygen and hydrogen, kind of came around to each other, and they kind of bumped up into each other, and there was some yummy feeling between the two of them. And they started imagining, wow, what could happen if we got together? And they kind of got together, and wow, big things happened. One of them, water. And just like that was a flavor of the love and relationship and imagination that the universe wanted to experience water. Wow. So all of the things, you just extrapolate from there of all of the different building blocks of life, each one another possibility full of creativity, animation, autonomy, and desire, and coming together. And then I get to ask the question of like, um, what is the poem of me? What is the love story of me? How Mary Oliver asked this one question. There's only one question, she says. That's, how do I love this world? So human beings might have been infused, all these big questions. You say, why are we asking all these big questions? What does it mean? What does it point to? Um, what if it means how we're each meant individually and collectively as a species, how to love this world, how to be co-collaborators in the most extraordinary experiment that's ever happened in the universe? Um, and that is the thing that is the force that's drawing us forward in our human development from the moment we're born, is to become the love affair, to become the poem that the earth dreamed of us, and particularly, and the cosmos dreamed of us as it dreamed of the Milky Way and the earth in particular. Um, and I could say that my entire being at this point in my life, I'm 66, going to be 67 in a couple months here, is to support the journey of human beings that are asking this question. And they might ask it in different ways, but I feel like that people are asking, what is my place in the world? They're kind of asking, how do I love this world? What is the poem of me that the earth dreamed of me in this world? How do I find it? How do I discover it? How do I become it? And that when we become it, that's when we become elders.
Okay, now I am a person who has never heard of these things before, but I'm allured. And oh yes, I want to become the poem of love. And I'm like enticed because I'm feeling the call to maturity. I'm not sure what that looks like exactly. And, I'm feeling the call to do something because I want to be an elder. So, if we want to become this love poem, this unique love poem, um, and the how of this, like, how would you recommend to someone listening to you, seeing you right now, to become the innate ecological, sensory, relational, co-creative being that we've longed to be? Are there specific processes and or journeys that you would recommend to someone who perhaps is beginning? And then maybe there would be like a parenthesis in here, like for someone, because it's very possible that people who are listening to you have already been on this journey for a while. And they're like, I'm familiar with some of these ideas, and I can't quite grasp,
Mhm.
like what would be your suggestions to all of us who want to deepen into this, because we love the earth, we love life, we are destroyed and completely heartbroken by what's happening in the societies in the world. Like, yeah, can you guide us?
Yeah. Well, one thing that might be true is how could we possibly know who we are and what our place is? And whether you call that the poem of you or the ecological niche of you, you can't know it without being in relationship with the web of life. So, first of all, we're destroying the web of life. We can't really know who we are outside of the web of life because it's through relationship with the web of life that we understand what our place is. So that's the first thing. We are inextricable from the web of relations that we live in. There's no way to understand who and what we are without being in relationship with the web of life. Um, so there's 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 big ways to participate, and then there's the individual ways to follow this question: what am I? What's my place? What's the poem of me in the web of life? Joanna Macy has, you know, Joanna Macy, our dearest Earth Elder, is transitioning as we speak right now. Yeah. But in the work that reconnects, she speaks about, there's three ways to participate in these times, and one is holding actions, and that means preserving whatever we can of the web of life during our lifetime. And some people might find that they're called to that pathway to preserving rivers, to preserving ecosystems, to preserving forests, to preserving clean air, to preserving mountaintops. So that's one way. Another way is to participate in the shifting of the human habitation structures of our world. So that's like big. That's like capitalism, deconstructing capitalism and deconstructing ideas that say that we're here to just take and extract from the earth, and all of the concomitant institutions and structures. So family, law, medicine, philosophy, all the structures that make up a society. So someone might be involved in um, changing the structures of society, changing the structures of our human habitation pattern to become life enhancing structures on Earth. So that's one. Second one. And then the third one is folks who are involved in shifting the consciousness um, of our people. Um, so that's kind of where Animas Valley Institute falls in that realm, and Joanna's work also falls in that realm, and many, many other people's work falls in that realm, shifting consciousness. And part of Bill's work has been to create a structure. It does change the human habitation structures on Earth, but he's created a structure to shepherd people through um, the human maturation process. That is a nature centric process. It's based on the developmental patterns we see in nature. It's an 8-stage model of human development. And it lays out basically how to raise healthy humans that understand that they have an opportunity, that they're blessed to be part of a life enhancing relationship with the web of life. Um, So there's, I'm trying to, I guess I'm wrestling a little bit with how to go from macro, to micro here. But that institution, when people of all ages, say anybody from 18 to 70, um, might read one of those books or know someone who's read of the work of the Animas Valley Institute, they might come to Animas Valley Institute and begin this exploration of their own developmental pathway, and they might tend to tasks that are presented in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 that they didn't get to. Um, they weren't supported in healthy development in our families and in our societies, and they begin to retend those tasks and moving people ready to something that's called the journey of soul initiation, which is stage 4 in that model, and then moving from that stage into stages 5, 6, 7, 8 in the model, which really are the developmental pathway of moving from becoming a true adult into elderhood um, in this world. Let's see. So you're asking, and then there's like how do we do that? Well, there's all kinds of the book Soulcraft, which is a wonderful book, another book of Bill Plotkin, speaks about practices and ways of being in relationship with the more than human world. I said we can't know who we are without being in relationship with the more than human world. So there's many cultures that have been here on Earth before and that are still here now that are teaching us how to be in relationship with the world, and they have practices for how to be in a living, animate relationship with the world. Those practices are dance, myth, poetry, speaking across the species boundary, perhaps working with our daydreams and our night dreams, looking for patterns of synchronicity, of symbol, myth, story, and imagery. Um, making offerings, listening with attention to the more than human world. And then you asked about the capacities. Well, we have to develop certain capacities to be able to do those practices that I just spoke of. And so some of those capacities are learning how to develop our sensory capacities, how to see and listen and taste and smell and hear in the web of life. Um, how to know our bodies. Like one of the things that's happened in modernity is like we do not know our bodies and we do not know about our emotions. So emotional literacy, somatic literacy, and relational literacy are some of the capacities that we need to develop. And there's many, many people teaching us about these things in the world today. But like most people did not grow up understanding that grief or anger, for example, they're the bad emotions that we're not supposed to have, you're not supposed to show. But what if, again, the truths of our body are part of the blueprint that we came in with, and they're there for a reason. So that grief tells us what we're in love with. And your particular grief and my particular grief points to something that we might be made to pay attention to. And your particular anger and my particular anger might be an emotion that tells us something about our sense of values of what's just and what's unjust. We become angry when we feel injustice has occurred. And each one of us, maybe we share values, and then there might be individual and unique values that we each have. So that's like somatic and emotional literacy means coming to understand our body. Oh, this is what my body feels like when I feel joy. Oh, and I'm particularly a one who feels joy when I hear the birds singing, or I'm a particular one who feels joy. I'm particularly amused by thunderstorms, or I'm a particular one who's amused by the processes of death and decomposition. So these are kind of how certain qualities of each one of us point to something about our place in the ecological web of life. So right now I'm talking about, just to bring us back, I'm talking about emotional, somatic kinds of literacies, knowing our bodies. You're asking, what do we have to grow? What do we have to grow to be able to do these soulcraft practices, these practices that bring us into our right relationship with Earth, these practices that eventually help us on our developmental pathway to become a true elder, an earth-centric elder. So knowing our body, like we do not have a healthy relationship with sex or sensuality or eros in modernity in these times. There's some people that do, but I'm talking about the masses. Um, we don't have a right relationship with our body. We think the body's bad. We're taught not to listen to our body. Oh, I feel sad, Mom. I just saw this person on the street and they were hungry. Why is that happening, Mom? Oh, don't pay attention to that. Don't worry about that right now. We're told not to listen to our body and to not feel our feelings. So, yeah, so becoming really opening up those capacities for emotional literacy, relationship literacy. What is a conscious relationship? What's a healthy relationship? How do you communicate healthy? How do you have healthy sexual relationships? What's a healthy parenting? Oh my God, the whole world of parenting, right? And then I'm kind of moving around another wheel that is in the work of animus around the windows of knowing through the map of psyche, which is laid out in the Wild Mind book, kind of started in the East, these capacities, um, which are also capacities of innocence and wonder and wisdom. I'm kind of moving towards the South, the capacities for eros, deep eros, and aliveness and trusting our bodies. And then there's capacities that are expressed that we sometimes say are West capacities, which are, oh my goodness, this is the capacity for us to recognize that there's mystery, that the world is calling to me in a mysterious, romantic way. Everybody feels that at some point, teenagers for sure feel it. They start to feel that there's some mystery here, and they get excited about their life. There's some mystery, some romance for me here with me in the world. And that's also when we begin to get these concepts of beloved, and the inner beloved. And, that's been kind of ruined too in modernity, that it has something to do with your outside beloved, which makes you whole. But what if there is a part of us that tends to our love affair with the inner beloved? And that is what's pointing to something uniquely about the earth as lover and us, right? So there's that. And these were kind of maybe far out things I'm talking about. Um, but also in that way of knowing is this way of knowing that there's unique patterns and symbols that follow us in our life. Like maybe you've always been a person who has been haunted by owls in some way. Or maybe you've always been a person who has been haunted by spirals or puzzles or death. And this one of us that can recognize these patterns that might be pointing to our mysterious relationship with the cosmos and the more than human world. Um, and then these qualities where we are here for more than ourselves, where we have to develop this understanding that maybe we owe something for our life. Maybe we have an accountability and a responsibility for the miraculous birth that we have to get to be here. And it has something to do with giving back and serving the world in visionary and evolutionary ways, and that each one of us is meant to become an adult and an elder who feels responsible for the smallest to the eldest in our communities in the web of life, and who holds the wisdom ways of the ancestors, the song lines, the ceremonies of our people, of our ancestors, knows how to serve our people through the dark times and the winter times, and also reaches out forward in the living of how we live as a society to the future ones that are coming. We care and feel responsible for the next 7 generations, and we carry forth the wisdom and the insight of our ancestors. So these are some of the capacities that are innate within us, and we need help developing. And when we develop them, we start to become more whole and less of a species who are primarily operating in the world from a place of psychosocial wounding, right? We might surmise right now that the world is full of people who have been wounded psychologically, socially, in their bodies, and haven't been raised in societies or villages where the parents and the aunties and the uncles and the elders there actually understand something about our species' place in the web of life. And they understand that there's a poem inside of every young one that's born. And the elders and the adults' responsibility is to be seeking and supporting the development of that poem or that love affair between that young one and the world as a whole. Most of us did not have that. But that doesn't mean we don't long for it and we're not heartbroken that we didn't have it. We do long for it and we are heartbroken. And almost every human being can relate to that. If you were to say that to them, almost every human being could relate to that longing. You know, Francis Weller, in his windows of grief or doorways of grief, one is this huge grief of what I imagined the world I would be born into, the kind of village I imagined I would be born into, but wasn't. What a huge grief when you find out you've been born into this modern world, and we're extracting everything from the world so fast that all the beautiful, intricate web of life is dying, is being undone. And it took billions of years to evolve. And in just a few minutes in cosmological time, our species has brought it to the brink of destruction. So, what are you going to do with the time that's left to you? You brought up Tolkien in the beginning, and Gandalf says, My two favorite people right now are Mary Oliver and Gandalf because of the questions they ask, and Gandalf asks, what will you do with the time that is left for you? That's the only thing you have to decide is what to do with the time that's left to you. And Mary Oliver says, the only question is, how do I love this world? So those are real amazing guiding questions for our life by elders in our life, that we can follow. And we can explore Animas Valley Institute if you feel you're on this journey of becoming fully human and you want to dive more deeply into one model. It's just one model of many. Perhaps it's real good for a Western psyche model, for the Western psyches of those that, for those of us who have lost connection to our indigeneity and our indigenous wisdom roots. But it's one model that really lays out a healthy progression according to the blueprint we were born with from the time we were born to become an earth elder that serves the earth in these times. That was a lot.
I'm drinking and it's delicious. This elixir. Um, yeah, I think something for me personally has been this beautiful integration between depth psychology, eco-depth psychology, philosophy, animism.
Yeah.
There's such a synthesis in the work there that I didn't find anywhere else. And that's why these maps for me and what you're speaking to from your own unique experience and just naming them has so much power and strength.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I wanted just to like go to one place in the area of the wholeness
Uh-huh.
and this development of our relationship with our, as David Abrams says, becoming animal. And again, like quoting Mary Oliver, the only thing you have to do is let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. So I don't know if you could sort of just like open the doorway so we can peek inside a little bit about
Sure.
perhaps some kind of specific practices that you practice. I'm fascinated. Like, what is it that Palika does when she wants to really connect with that part of her, which would be sort of in the wild mind, would be the south of the body. And so, yeah.
Sure. Mm. So many. I'm just thinking about people that have shown the way in this way. So many. Praise. Let's just start with praise. Praising. Um, this is so innate in us, like when we're little children, the first raindrops, or even like the first time you had a bath and your parents put you in that warm water, there's like giggling and there's like delight that just automatically, the body just automatically responds that way. Or kissing your grandma, or kissing your father, your mother, or playing. And we have this innate capacity for joy and to be in wonder in the world. So what if each one of us every day made a commitment, or as many days of the week as we could, to get up at dawn? You know, the dawn has secrets. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. So what if we were to practice getting up at dawn and walking out? It could be on your back porch, it could be in your backyard, walking out into the world, and just imagine you're seeing the world for the very first time, like you've never seen a tree before. What if you've never seen a rose before? Or you've never seen a butterfly before, or a squirrel before? What if you've never seen a skunk before? What if you've never seen that glowing golden globe, the sun, before? How would you respond? And respond with your whole body. Respond with your words, your poetic words of appreciation and awe. Oh, dear golden globe, the colors of yellow and gold and ochre and copper that I see in you, they just fill me with such surprise and wonder. And I'm just, I feel the warmth touching my skin. I feel the warmth of you touching my skin, and it feels so good. And when I'm in you, I notice that I want to move in this way. I start to move in a more sensual and open way when I turn my attention towards the sun. Or maybe You also do this praise practice in the evening and you turn your attention to the sunset or you turn your attention to the night and you speak praise to the world and you go around. I mean, I'm kind of really silly like this, but I don't care anymore because it's such a luscious way to live and because I feel it's so important. I actually feel like I'm tending the web of life when I walk around just the neighborhood. This is not talking about going on a wild wander to like the Red Rock country, but just in my neighborhood. And I become absolutely enamored by the bird of paradise plant. And I just stop and I just start gushing and I'm moving sometimes like a young child. And I don't care what people think. And in fact, I hope that I might be a permission bringer. I might be an agent of mystery. I might be an agent on behalf of mystery that helps them remember that they too have this innocent one of them that wants to praise and be in wonder and awe. It's a wise and innocent one of the world. Okay, so that's a practice. So that's a praise practice, an awe practice, a wonder practice. Another one that could stem from that would be making offerings of beauty, like actually showing gratitude to the world, making simple acts of beauty, like you're sitting under this redwood tree, which I get to do living in Santa Cruz. So blessed. You're sitting under this redwood tree and you're just feeling the mystery and the magic of these ancient beings, and you're so astounded and you want to give something back. So maybe there's some pine cones and leaves and flower petals on the ground, and maybe I make a mandala of beauty and infuse it with my gratitude as well as my prayers. May you live for centuries and centuries. May you continue to be in the deep conversation you're having with the Monterey Bay and with the pileated woodpecker here on this land. May you continue to remember all those who came and offered their tears and their new babies and their dying elders' stories to you. So I make an offering of beauty and real authentic gratitude in my being. That's another practice. Um, Another practice could be um, wandering into the night and remembering we're not afraid of the dark. We have eyes to see in the dark. The beings in the dark are astounding and wonderful, and they're just as important as the beings of the light. And perhaps we begin a practice of undoing, of deconditioning our fear of the dark. Um, Actually spending time in the night, listening for the wonders of the dark. And maybe if we're fortunate, wandering in the night, some shadows of our psyche might appear, like the parts of us that project evil onto darkness, like black panthers are bad, or black cats are bad, or black ravens, or black crows, or black serpents are bad, where we've had to project certain kinds of powers and qualities that belong to us that we're afraid of or that haven't been allowed or approved of in our modern culture. And we project their unwantedness, we project their dismissal, their outcastness onto the dark of the world, including death. So that's a practice, befriending the dark, going out and befriending the dark. Another practice would be learning to speak aloud across the species boundaries, like what if you were just curious about the others, like what they feel or what their experience is? What if you went on a wander at the edge of the beach, or the edge of the ocean, or the edge of a river, or in a grassland that and you sat down and you just got curious about what the experience of the other than human beings is, what's their experience being alive in this world, and you actually got to the point where you asked it out loud with your words. When you were a child, we also spoke with our words out loud. We knew that when we spoke to the clouds in the sky, or our dog, or our cat, when we spoke to the flowers outside, we knew they could hear us. We knew they could relate to us. We knew it as children. And then that's been kind of beaten out of us. So, what if you were to go and say, I'm so curious about you. What's your experience being here? And you just listened and you imagined that you were born with the capacity to perhaps hear some of their speaking, some of their feeling. Perhaps you were born with that capacity. There's so many practices in schools like deep nature connection schools, some like wilderness awareness school, for example, or weaving earth, or there's different kinds of nature connection schools. They help us remember how to commune with the natural world and remember our place there. So those kinds of schools and getting that kind of experience is really helpful for people. Yeah. I want to speak to one other practice, which is really important, which is this practice of it's in the wild mind work, but there's many people doing this work of coming to understand the extraordinary, brilliant protector strategies that we've developed in our life, and they protect us and help us get primary human needs like belonging, getting our needs met, feeling that we have a contribution to make, feeling that we're worthy of love and we deserve love. And we have all been wounded, both collectively and individually. So starting the journey of pattern tracking and understanding and becoming a really good inner tracker about how I've been wounded and how my societies, my parents, my ancestors have been wounded in the world, and what strategies I've adopted to survive those, and start asking the question perhaps how those strategies are keeping us from moving forward in a holistic way in the maturation journey, the psychospiritual maturation journey of us as human beings. So, and people who are doing, IFS work, wild mind work, IFS is internal family systems and parts work, and wild mind that we do here at Animus helps people, one, become that inner tracker. And what we do that's unique at Animus in the wild mind work is we help people develop these facets of wholeness, which I was just alluding to a little bit earlier, so that we're not operating in the world from our woundedness, but we come to be in relationship with the world from our wholeness, which has to happen in order for mystery to pull us into the journey of soul initiation. So,
Um, that last part, I think, is the difference. It really makes the difference in this work for me, in the sense that when we start to create relationship with our unconscious, or what Jung called the shadow, and then start to recognize who's in the driver's seat, and as you say, like this tracking, and become just a little bit more aware of which parts of us are actually directing the show, and
yeah.
being able to choose and then create more tangible conscious relationships with these parts of wholeness that are, as you say, innate. And I think that that is something so beautiful about this work and reassuring. It's like, once we have a clarity of vision, I believe, and a capacity to really have that detective skill of understanding through our thoughts or emotions or the way that we act, then I feel as if there is like this natural call and satisfaction of really being in a place that's more whole, and actually realizing that we're all capable of that. That, like you say, when we're children, I was going to ask you to define it when you talked about across the species boundaries, and I think that you did it beautifully. We can all relate to that, and it has been my experience on the land. I remember in the redwoods 2 years ago when I was, participating in on an immersion there. It's like to go out into the darkness and be with these powerful beings is so. It's such a magical and powerful, perceived to be maybe like a simple action, but in itself, how it affects the psyche is just tremendous. So I love that you said the praising and really going out, befriending the darkness, the offerings, and yeah, conversations across the species boundaries. Okay, so we are.
I want to allude to something here just to track for people. I know we're getting close to the end, but we're talking about the innate blueprint that we have as human beings that hopefully is realized when we become the poem or the dream to be the lover of earth and the lover of the cosmos that was dreamed of us in the beginning of all creation. And that in this nature and the human soul, this ecocentric developmental pathway of becoming fully human, what we're talking about is, just to give a term for people, or a couple terms here that would help people, is eco awakening. One is eco awakening. We're talking about awakening, reawakening, remembering that we are essentially members of a living web of life. So we have a lot of work to do in this eco awakening, and there's many people that are helping with that. And the other one is this holing and self-healing that we're talking about, which is tending to our psyches and the way we have either been supported or wounded in families and in the culture at large that inhibits us fulfilling this blueprint to become a whole human being that can move through this developmental pathway into true adulthood and eventually elderhood that is here for visionary and evolutionary action for a life enhancing world, you know. So just wanted to name those terms, and that's what we do at Animas Valley Institute, and there's many other people working in those realms. And then those two things. So we're attending to the ecocentric developmental journey of a human being, eco awakening, holing and self healing, and then the journey of soul initiation, which is a very particular journey. And maybe we'll have to do a separate podcast on that one, or maybe you'll have another visitor who will talk about that. But that is, essentially what happens in stage 4 on this 8-stage model of a soul-centric and ecocentric human development model. So that's kind of the work we're doing with Animus. And then once people actually go through stage 4, helping people to find, to move into their particular ways of delivering the poem of them, the lover of them, to the world as a service, as a gift. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would love to do another podcast in the future. And I'm super curious also about I just would love for you to unpack and sort of be able to express to us, perhaps in another time, like your specific journey, like what is that you discovered? What are these images, shapes, and this beautiful, unique form of you that perhaps you could speak to it just right now. I mean, if you'd like to, yeah, what
Sure.
is who is Palika in this mythopoetic way that she has like heard and listened and felt and emerges and arrives at the world in? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I'd have to give thanks. It would just be hours and hours of giving gratitude and thanks for so many experiences in my life, like experiences in the wild, like numinous kinds of encounters that have happened on the land and in relationship with wild beings, dreams that have, haunted me in my life and occurred, and certain kinds of synchronicities of certain kind of beings that I've run into again and again. And then my own questions, the own questions that were alive in me that guided where I moved, who I went, what teachings or elders were particularly felt relevant and important to me in my life. But I can say that right now, I can just speak a little bit to the one of me who is the bone hut. So I could just share a little bit about that. What does that mean? It's part of the unfolding mythopoetic identity of myself. And just so the listeners aren't left with what the heck is a mythopoetic identity, it's a it's a way of knowing, it's a way of relationship, it's an identity that is not vocational or social, but rather has um, a story that is mysterious and poetic about your place in the web of life. It describes the poem of you in your life. It describes the field of possibilities that you were particularly and uniquely designed for, to live as, to contribute to the web of life. And it's not something like, I'm a doctor, I'm a preschool teacher, I'm an artist, or I'm a rabbi. Those are all delivery systems. We would call those delivery systems. So a mythopoetic identity is not a vocational identity or a social identity. Um, so it's an identity that doesn't really fit on a CV to get hired by any company. I wouldn't write that I am the bone hut, da 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 da, and this is going to qualify me for a job somewhere. So, but I will speak to this understanding of my being that has come through conversations with the more than human world and pattern tracking certain patterns that have followed me. And at this time, I'm a one who tends the becoming fully human journey of all those who are ardently and passionately seeking to love this world in their way. Um, they come to the bone hut, and we sit around a hearth fire in the bone hut, and we speak honestly and vulnerably about the places that we are brokenhearted, about the questions, the biggest questions that could make or break a life. We speak about our deepest longings and heartache um, in the bone hut. And I am that bone hut. And the bone hut is this extraordinary place that's kind of in between worlds. It's kind of in a liminal space. It lives deep in a forest and it rides on a serpent, on the spine of an undulating serpent called Mystery. And it has a life of its own. And I am just blessed to be there in these deep conversations with other humans who care deeply about the earth in these great turning times and want to know what their place is and how to love this world. And we speak and we listen and we practice soulcraft and we practice all of these practices that help us get closer to the world and eco awaken. We do practices of holding and self healing, and we do practices of letting what needs to die die. People need a lot of help with that. People need a lot of support with allowing what's coming to die in their life to die. They need support. They need threshold midwives. And our whole culture needs death doulas for this time. And I see that's all part of my mythopoetic identity, to be a death doula and a threshold midwife. Bone Hut is one of the ways I do that.
Thank you. Death
Yeah.
and a threshold midwife. It seems to me that the mythopoetics and the way that you uniquely arrive is like this deeply honoring of what you've heard and experienced from this your relationship with this web, as you talk about. And yeah, thank you for speaking to that. So the final question would be then, so what do you dream about for the future, Palika, for yourself, for the earth? What is the most beautiful dream that you would like to share with us? Um, yeah, what are you going to do with the time that's left to you on the earth?
Well, one, I want to do everything I can so that when I die, the web of life has experience that I see it, that I see you, I love you, I appreciate you, I bow to you, and I feel beholden to you. Like when I die, I want the forests that I've been in and the oceans that I've been with and the places I've been with and the humans I've been with and all of the web of life that I have breathed with and lain with and listened to and made offerings of beauty to. But the world knows that I get it. It's a extraordinary, outrageous miracle. It's a miracle to be here and it's a miracle to participate. So I hope that the others have felt that in my life. I long to be a one who just supports anyone who longs for support to know how to love this world, how to remember themselves to the web of life, how to feel re-enchanted with their relationship, their intimate relationship with the animate world, how to help them re-enchant and discover and let's see, and court their own romance with mystery, their own romance with mystery. I want to be an ally for anyone who longs for that. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to help people fall in love with the earth and find their way into the deepest enchantment with mystery, the beloved romance they can have that they were made to have. I want to help them find out what they were made so sensitive for. Like you are so sensitive to this and this and this, and that might mean that you are the one who's meant to tend this and this and this. Yeah, I want to give that. And yeah, when I have a poem that I would offer at the end, when you tell me when the end is.
Yes, yes, please. I'd love for you to read the poem, please. Please be the
Okay.
poem. Yeah.
So I had about 5 poems picked out here that I would read at the end. And I'm in a real struggle between, I'll just name both of them. I'm in a struggle between When Death Comes by Mary Oliver that one, and Humanity's Sacred Wound by Janine Marie Haugen. So I'm kind of in a tussle. So I think I'm going to read Janine's poem because maybe it's less known to people. But please go read When Death Comes as like a mission for your life, a mission for your life, because it's so extraordinary. And I'm going to close this door here for 1 second. Okay, so this poem is by the amazing Janine Marie Haugen, who who was born to help us realize and understand what it means to be Homo imaginans. Yeah, she's someone you might want to have on your podcast sometime. This poem is by her. It's called Humanity's Sacred Wound. For billions of years, billions of creatures have made a home on this jeweled planet of water and stone. Wild love affairs, sun and earth, fungi and algae, bacteria and mitochondria preceded and spawned us. Our ancestral lineage recorded in the original eyes of trilobites, in undulating muscle of jellyfish, in ancient skeletal minerals sketched first in the dark heart of stars. Peering billions of years backwards in time, we humans probe deep space and cosmogenesis, decipher the unfurling story of life, yet barely perceive the future hurtling towards us, even as it's shaped by our ambitious, grasping hands and filled with the stuff of human imagination, however impoverished or vast. Billions of creatures already know their perfect place in the cosmic dance, their specific genius expressed in relation to nectar or coral reef, sequoia or hawk. Millions of unlettered species already answer questions we have barely begun to ask. The oldest mystery school apparent in ones who commune without cults, communicate without language, migrate without combustion or without brains or hands, couple with the sun, birthing energy from endlessly streaming photons. What must they think of us? Hungry ghosts hooked up to plasma TV, gathering faraway food in packages, drinking from bottles of plastic, raising forests for scented tissues and catalogs, slicing our own flesh for pleasure or perfection, pouring poison into the faultless bodies of children, loading the tender arms of young men and women with bombs and guns, exploding their minds with the dismembered bodies of their own kind before they know how to wallow with a lover in wildflowers beneath the holy moon and burning eyes of the gods, before they know what genius, what poem smolders in them awaiting fire, before they know how to pluck a columbine and offer cool nectar to the lover's tongue. This is the way it's always been. Billions of creatures co-arising, fading in and out of the irreversible cosmic symphony. Do they regret living as they must, cued to primal harmonics of tide and storm, phytoplankton and oak, lion and vole? And what of us? In the last green flash of consciousness, before we are swallowed by the great night sea, will we wonder if we have left a wake of ruin or of celebration, an offering of reciprocal magnitude to the billowing imagination and wild cosmic womb from which we first emerged as spark, as seed, as a fragile embryo of possibility? Thank you to that one for that mythic megalithic poem.
Thank you so much for reading that poem. I was just mesmerized. Yeah, Palika, thank you so much for being here. I have so many more questions. I'm sure that we all do. And at the same time, it's been so rich and deep. And I feel as if you're inviting us on this journey. You're inviting us on this mythopoetic journey. And thank you so much Is there any last words that you want to tell us here about how we can connect with you and or find you?
You can connect with me with wildmythosdrums.com, where I paint drums and make offerings there. And you can also connect with me. I'm an animist guide at the Animist Valley Institute, which is www.animist.org. And just let yourself be stirred by the question, um, what is Earth longing for from me? What is the poem I'm meant to inhabit as a gift to the world in these times?
Mm, Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Palika. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
I'll see you soon.